Our film begins in 1939 in a Texas town with a young boy named Bernard, who is African American, sitting on the sidewalk shining shoes in front of the biggest bank in the city. Bernard is very focused on the conversations he hears from the wealthy business people and investors whose shoes he is shining. He begins to jot down everything they say about buying and selling in his notebook, curious to understand how the rich, most of whom are white, manage to amass their wealth and acquire so many possessions. One day, he sees a bank guard leaning against the window, watching the employees while writing in his notebook. The guard grabs him and shouts, thinking Bernard is spying on them for someone else and relaying information. However, Bernard manages to sprint away and escape. When his father finds out what happened, he becomes worried for him and tells him that if white people learn he's spying on them, they might kill him. He warns Bernard not to do that again, but Bernard tries to convince him that he's doing it because he wants to become rich like them. When his father sees Bernard's notebook, he is amazed by his talent, thinking, and calculations. However, he tells Bernard that it will be difficult to achieve his dream because he isn't white like them and that white people don't allow black people to be wealthy. But Bernard is confident that he will accomplish his dream, stating that he might be able to do it if he moves from Texas to another city. Years pass, and Bernard grows up, gets married, and has a son. We see him moving with his family to California in 1954, where they temporarily stay at the home of Deacon, his wife's uncle, who offers him a job opportunity at an airline, saying he can help him get an interview. However, Bernard tells him that he came to California to start a career in real estate. Deacon laughs loudly at him and tells Yuna, Bernard's wife, that he didn't know she married a millionaire. She informs him that they have saved some money to start their own business and buy a property to rent out. Deacon provokes Bernard further, telling him that he might lose the money he has saved, and then he won't be able to pay the rent for where they will live. Unable to tolerate Deacon's nonsense and discouraging words, Bernard asks for permission to leave, and Yuna goes with him, telling him that she is confident he is a genius and that he will change their lives. They quickly walk away from her uncle's place, and afterward, Bernard begins searching for all the properties for sale in the city, familiarizing himself with their prices and contacting their owners until he finds a building that is reasonably priced for the amount of money he has. However, he discovers that it requires a lot of repairs, so he decides to buy it. But he has a problem. After buying the building, he won't have enough money to renovate it and pay for the repairs needed in the apartments. His wife Yuna responds by introducing him to an investor who will partner with him, presenting Joe, a wealthy black man. But when Bernard talks to Joe, he feels uneasy and gets the impression that Joe is careless and irresponsible, as he jokes all the time. Bernard feels that he won't be able to trust him or partner with him in his project. He leaves feeling upset and tells Yuna that it's impossible for him to partner with Joe. Thus, the only solution becomes for him to go to Parker, the owner of the building he intends to buy, and try to negotiate with him to lower the amount he will pay so he can save some money for repairing the building. Indeed, Bernard goes to talk to Parker and tries to convince him to lower the asking price. Bernard tells him that if he can repair the building, the tenants will pay more rent, and then he will be able to pay the rest of the price to him. But Parker is not convinced by his words and tells him that the tenants will never pay more than that. He continues to convince Parker that they will change the type of people who will rent from them, targeting a higher class such as lawyers and doctors who wish to improve their living conditions and move to better places. He points out that these individuals wouldn't mind paying more because it aligns with their income. Bernard tells him that if he agrees, they will consider it a joint investment and both will profit. Although Parker is impressed by his enthusiasm and thinking, he does not agree because he has received a higher offer from someone else, in addition to the fact that he will receive all his money up front. But Bernard did not give up and decided to go to the bank where Parker is one of the most important clients to request a loan. However, the staff there treat him with discrimination due to his skin color and refuse to let him meet Reed, the bank manager. The staff member lies to him, telling him that Reed is not available. Bernard left the bank and stood outside until Reed finished his work so he could talk to him. When he sees him, he tells Reed that he couldn't meet him inside the bank for the reason they both know, and that's why he had to wait to ask him for approval to grant him a loan to buy a property from Parker. At night, Bernard is surprised by a call from Parker, who tells him that the bank manager contacted him and informed him about his request, Although this contradicts the laws because he used Parker's name without his knowledge, Parker agrees and sets a meeting for the morning at the bank to sign the contract and obtain the loan. Parker points out that the only reason he agreed is Bernard's insistence on buying the building, which indicates that he trusts his idea and its potential for profit. Therefore, he contacted the bank and told them to grant him the loan, as he would be the guarantor. At that moment, Bernard is shocked and cannot believe it himself because he will finally take the first step toward his dream. He goes to celebrate with Yuna, where he meets Joe, the wealthy black man, who tells him that he knows he is ambitious and smart. Joe says that if Bernard needs help at any time, he should not hesitate to reach out to him because he enjoys seeing people like him succeed. They warn him about Parker because if Bernard does not fulfill his promise and is unable to rent the house quickly, Parker is sure to harm him. This bothers Bernard, and he starts to think about the matter. Therefore, he does not waste any time and immediately begins fixing the building with the help of Yuna's cousin and his friend, Matt. Bernard agrees with them that they will work with him for a financial fee. One of the tenants sees Bernard and tells him that he should inform Parker that she will not pay any increase in rent. Bernard replies that he has bought the building from Parker, but she does not believe him and says that this building is only for whites, and it's impossible for someone like him to have the money to buy it. She then reports him to the police. When they arrive, Bernard gives them a copy of the documents that prove his ownership of the building. But even the police treat him with discrimination. They advise him to get along well with his neighbors, and then they leave. After a while, Bernard moves in with his family and they rent an apartment in the building. At that time, he disturbs the existing tenants because they do not want him as their neighbor. With time, Bernard manages to rent all the vacant apartments in the building and returns all of Parker's money in a short period, proving his success to everyone. This impresses Parker even more, and he offers to partner with Bernard in real estate investment with the profits to be split evenly between them. However, the condition is that Bernard's role will be only to communicate with clients over the phone, while Parker will be the face they deal with, attending all the agreements because people do not like to interact with Bernard and confront him with persecution and discrimination. Thus, the two achieve profit together. Without thinking, Bernard agrees, and they start buying old properties, renovating them, investing in them, and renting them out, until Bernard becomes a partner with Parker in 12 properties. Their profits grow, and Bernard buys a large house for his family, and they move in. When he shows it to Yuna, she admires it, but thinks he has rented it. However, when she learns that he has bought it and registered it in her name, she is very happy because it shows his appreciation for her encouragement and support when he had no money. But after a while, an unexpected battle occurs that turns all of Bernard's calculations upside down when he learns that Parker has passed away. His wife wants to dissolve the partnership between them and offers to buy Bernard's share for a very small amount. She takes advantage of the fact that his name is not on any contract between him and Parker, which was agreed upon so that his name would not appear in the contracts and agreements. But Bernard is shocked by what is happening and tries to convince her to continue the partnership with him instead of her husband. But she refuses and tells him that she does not like dealing with black people. She advises him to accept the amount she offered instead of suing, as he will not be able to prove his rights to it. At that moment, Bernard tells the lawyer what is happening and says that the only solution is to have a witness to the partnership in order to prove his rights in court. Bernard remembers Reed, the bank manager who granted him the loan and was aware of everything happening between him and Parker. However, when Bernard goes to the bank, Reed refuses to meet with him. At that moment, Bernard realizes that Reed will not testify for him and that he will cooperate with Parker's wife, who is a client at the bank. He thinks of the idea that if he can buy the building where the bank is located, the bank will not be able to refuse to grant him the loan, and he will be a client there, just like Parker's wife. Bernard recalls Joe, whom Yuna introduced him to, and pitches his idea to him. Indeed, Bernard goes to Joe and tells him about the problem he is facing, convincing him to partner in purchasing the bank building. Joe is impressed by his enthusiasm and initially agrees, but he makes it clear that they will not approve the sale of the building to them because of their skin color. Bernard tells him that he has already thought it over and has a solution to this problem, to agree with Matt, the construction worker who works with him on renovating the buildings he has purchased, to be their front because he is white, They go to meet him, and he agrees, but Joe is not convinced and tells Bernard that he is a coward and won't be able to do what they need. Bernard reassures him, saying that they will train him on everything, and his appearance and clothing will change. Most importantly, he trusts him. Bernard teaches Matt how to calculate quickly, how to persuade others, and to buy at any amount he wants. He also learns to play golf and how to dress appropriately so that he will be ready. Before Bernard goes to meet the building owner, he learns some information about him and discovers that it is considered the tallest building in the city. Meanwhile, Joe introduces him to all the owner's schedules at the places he frequents and arranges a meeting for him at the country club where the owner is a member so he can get to know him. Matt meets the building owner several times at the club and plays golf with him. On one occasion, when they get to know each other better, Matt decides to propose purchasing the building to him. Bernard tells him how he can persuade him and how to calculate everything quickly to earn his trust. However, Matt responds that it is impossible for him to calculate all that and that he has to memorize the numbers. Indeed, Matt sits with the building owner and is able to easily persuade him using the same methods Bernard used, and he agrees to sell the building to him. Thus, Bernard is able to acquire the building. Then Bernard and Joe introduce themselves to the tenants as partners of Matt. As time passes, their partnership develops, and they take out loans to buy several buildings and rent them out. After a while, Bernard returns to Texas and meets with his father, who tells him that he is proud of what he has accomplished. The next day, Bernard takes his son out for a walk in the city where his father was born. Bernard goes and stands in front of the bank where he used to shine shoes as a child. There, he sees a boy sitting in the same spot doing the same work. Bernard asks the boy about the price to shine his shoes, and he is shocked by the response, as the boy tells him that he only shines shoes for white people. At that moment, Bernard realizes that Texas has not changed after all these years and that racism still exists even among young children. He makes an important decision that he wants to buy the bank where he worked in front of. He goes to tell Joe about this decision and convinces him, explaining that he wants to buy this specific bank to prove to himself and many people in Texas that black people can succeed and become wealthy just like white people. At the same time, he will also be able to help many black individuals by providing loans to them. But Joe refuses, insisting that the situation in Texas is different from California and that they might face many problems. Bernard convinces him that they will have Matt help them as he did before, and that they will offer him more money to agree. Indeed, they convince Matt to go to Texas and act as their partner. He manages to persuade the bank owner to join them, acquiring 80% of the bank, while the remaining 20% belongs to Robert, the bank owner's son. Bernard feels a great sense of happiness and begins to persuade Matt to convince the bank to grant loans to black families so they can start their own businesses, improve their income levels, and live better lives. This marks the first time a Texas bank agrees to give a loan to black individuals after they had been barred from entering the bank as customers and were only allowed in if they were serving or driving for white people. As time passes, Robert, the son of the bank owner, begins to suspect Matt due to the increasing number of large loans being granted to people. When he observes Matt, he sees him constantly meeting with Bernard and Joe and discovers that they are the true owners of the bank and that Matt is merely their front. When he goes to confront them at the place where they gather, he is very upset about what they have done. He tells them that they have deceived him because they didn't tell the truth from the beginning, and informs them that a large number of clients have filed complaints against them due to the loans they are granting to black people. He warns them that a committee of supervisors will come in a month to investigate the matter, and if they discover the truth, the white clients will withdraw their money, which will lead to the bank's loss and bankruptcy. Here he leaves them to think of a solution to the problem they have caused and walks away. At that point, Bernard says they should stop the loans they are granting to black individuals during this time until they come up with a solution. Matt suggests that they buy a new bank and transfer all the black clients who received loans there until the investigation is over so that they won't find anything. But Bernard and Joe are not enthusiastic about the idea because they do not have the time to manage the new bank. Matt seizes the opportunity and suggests that they make him an actual partner in the new bank. However, Bernard refuses, stating that it is difficult because he does not have enough experience to run the bank, in addition to the large amount of money they will invest in it. Matt threatened them that if they did not agree, he would create a problem for them and withdraw from all the contracts he had signed with them, and he would not be involved in any other work with them. At that moment, Joe feels a great sense of frustration and blames Bernard for not being cautious with Matt from the beginning, arguing that he is the one who gave Matt a confidence he did not deserve. But in the end, they are forced to agree and buy him the new bank. One day, he receives a surprise inspection of the new bank, and Bernard informs Matt that they will come in a few hours to check the loans. Bernard and Joe decide to rush over to help him, but to enter the bank, they must dress as janitors. They do so, but when Yuna sees them, she tells him that he is humiliating himself. Bernard tells her that he has no choice and must help Matt so that they do not lose the new bank. Then Joe and Bernard go to the bank, and at the same time, the inspection committee arrives. They discover numerous violations in the loans, and Matt cannot respond to any details they ask about because he is confused and does not understand. Matt becomes very tense and goes to the bathroom where Joe and Bernard are waiting for him. He asks them to find a way out to help him. Bernard is surprised when he learns that Matt is the one who made all these mistakes with the loans. Matt tells them that he did not understand and sought Robert's help. At that moment, they realize that Robert had intentionally set him up to make these mistakes. It is also not far-fetched to think that he was the one who reported them to the inspection committee, as he does not like them and wants to take revenge for what they did to him. They get angry with Matt for what he has done and ask him to focus on Robert at the second bank and try to convince the remaining clients not to cancel their loans. But the next day, they find out that Matt has sold the problematic loans with violations to Texas Bank in order to save the new bank that is registered in his name. Quickly, Joe and Bernard go to Texas Bank, unable to believe that Matt has done this. They tell him that by doing this, they will lose both banks. Matt responds that this is a temporary measure and everything will return to how it was. Before they can continue their conversation, officials from the regulatory office arrive and close Matt's bank because what he did was illegal, although he did not know it. Seconds later, the police arrive and arrest Matt, Joe, and Bernard. During the investigations, the officer advises Matt to say in court that Joe and Bernard did everything and that he was listening to them because he wanted the money. This way, the charges will be established against them, and Matt will not face any punishment. When Matt thinks about the officer's advice, he agrees and says this in the hearing session before the court. As for Joe, before his trial session, the officer investigating him advises him to confess that he was wrong for acquiring his money through fraud and deception, and that the eggs are the ones who supported and helped him reach where he is now. This way, there is a high possibility of having the judgment against him dismissed. When his session time comes, Bernard tells Yuna that she was right when she warned him about buying the bank, and that Joe was correct when he told him that it would cause them big problems, but he insisted on buying it. Yuna tells him that she always knew he was special in his thinking compared to others, and she urges him not to regret anything he did. She asks him to look at the issue from another perspective, as what happened could be an opportunity to defend himself in front of everyone and shed light on the racism happening between blacks and whites in Texas. Bernard reflects on Yuna's words, and when he enters the hearing session, he decides not to speak about the mistakes he made with the loans. He tells them that he knows this session was held because they believe that two black men should not own two banks, and this is the main reason for their desire to prosecute him. The judge tries to interrupt him, but Bernard, being passionate, continues his discussion about the racism they have faced since birth. He tells them that if it were allowed for them as black citizens to take a loan from the bank and start a small business, he would not have been forced to do all of this. A great commotion erupts in the courtroom, and the press takes pictures, which forces the judge to adjourn the session. Afterwards, the court sentences Joe and Bernard to 3 years in prison for embezzlement, fraud, and forgery, and it confiscates all their wealth and seizes their properties. Out of the 177 buildings that Bernard owned, only one remains, which is registered in the name of his wife Yuna. After 3 years, they are released from prison and are welcomed by Yuna. Bernard tells her that they will travel to the Bahamas, and he informs her that before the verdict, Matt called him and told him that the federal office wanted him to testify against them, and that if he did not agree, he would be imprisoned for 40 years. He didn't know what to do at that moment. At that time, he agreed to comply, but on the condition that Matt would do him a favor and buy him 2 houses there before the government seized his money. Afterward, Bernard and Joe decide to move their lives to the Bahamas and start investing in real estate again. After a while, they return to America having amassed a new fortune. We learn that after Bernard's testimony in court, the government issued the Fair Housing Act, which criminalizes the prevention of selling or renting properties to black individuals and establishes equality between them and white individuals in housing. Thank you for watching this video with us. If you enjoyed the content and found it interesting, don't forget to subscribe to the Cinema in a Nutshell channel to keep up with all the new movies and exciting stories we are about to present. Let's interact together. To all viewers, do you think that black people in America still face racism? And to our white friends, do you really believe there is discrimination against black individuals in society? Let's always remember that we are all brothers in humanity. Let's work together to eliminate racism forever and build a more just and equal world. Take care.